I'm Emily Grego. I'm President and CEO here at the San Leandro Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to our Government Affairs Roundtable, Meet the Candidates. Last week, we met the candidates who are running in District 4 for City Council. And this week, we are now going to meet the candidates running in District 2. So we will have with us Ed Hernandez, who is our current City Council member for District 2, and candidate Bryan Azevedo. We will meet with Ed for half an hour, and once Ed has completed his interview, he will then exit the meeting, and we will bring on Bryan, and we will meet Bryan for half an hour. So thank you all for being here today and joining us. I know that Natasha Hernandez has some updates for us. Natasha Hernandez is our events and marketing manager, and she's going to give us some housekeeping information to go along this in this webinar. So Natasha, go ahead.
Hi everyone, thank you for being with us. So just to let you all know, we are taking all of your questions in the chat. So if you're on your desktop, your chat should be located right on the bottom bar there. If you don't see it, it might be in more under chat where the three dots are. If you're on your mobile device, it will be in the bottom right of your screen. Also where those three dots are, that lists more options. So please submit those questions there. We will ask your questions for candidate Hernandez in the order that they come in. If you have a follow-up question for candidate Hernandez, please ask it in the chat as well. Candidate Hernandez will have 2 minutes to answer each question, and no disrespect, Ed, but we will put you on mute once you hit that 2-minute mark. So we will be timing that. Everybody else, you will remain on mute. Please do not unmute yourself as we will be asking your questions. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
It's been a while since anybody called me candidate Hernandez. Normally it's a council member. Like, take a second. Yes.
Thank you so much for all of that, Natasha. It's always really helpful to know what the rules are so people aren't talking over each other. And then I just want to remind everybody that's with us today that the Chamber does have a political action committee. The political action committee will be the endorser and contributor to the candidates of their choice on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. And if you're not able to cast a vote in San Leandro, perhaps you would like to be a contributing member to the PAC, and I'm more than happy to give all of you information about that. Just contact me via email or give the Chamber a call, and I can give you that information. So to get started, Ed, I've got some questions here.
Okay.
That we'll get started with until we get moving in the chat. But for the first 2 to 3 minutes, I'd like for you to let everybody know who you are and what has led you for re-election to City Council.
Yeah. I am Ed Hernandez. I'm parents of 2 immigrants. My parents came from Mexico, so Mexican American. Born in Los Angeles, went to school down south. There I went to school in Long Beach and came up here and got my master's in business, Cal State Hayward, the Harvard of the East Bay, and then continued my education at USF in organizational development. And about 16 years in San Leandro. I was working for a home builder back in the day in Pleasanton. My wife used to work for the Golden State Warriors, and we just found San Leandro sort of a middle place. And beyond that, I got more interested in learning more about how government works towards housing, how that interplays with overall opportunities to build more economic opportunities for the community and the challenges there. And I got appointed by former then Councilwoman Ursula Reed as a planning commissioner. And it's been about 5 years in that commission, so really planning the future for San Leandro. And now moving forward, the last 4 years was shaping this future. And now, right now, trying to focus on this recovery through the pandemic, really understanding the financials, the ins and outs of the community and how government works and how can we have it work for us. As business leaders, folks who are making things happen, it's quite important to understand what are the things we can pull and push to make a difference in our community. I'm committed to bringing additional revenues that help small business survive this recession. I've already brought in $300,000 in grants, over 300 receive applications. So there is more work to be done. There is more pain in our community, and they're committed to help with that concern. Did you want me to speak more? I wasn't sure where I was at with that, Emily.
Keep
going.
If you've got a little bit more that you want to share, go ahead.
Sure, sure. I mean, some of the major issues we're seeing through in San Leandro, of course, is COVID and the recession's impacting the community, specifically housing and food insecurity for most vulnerable population. We've already provided 135,000 to local nonprofits, each receiving about 15,000. Also, I serve on other boards, directors roles with East Bay Community Energy, about 70,000 there. And also Alameda County Fairgrounds, making sure that was the safe place for CAL FIRE to deploy themselves and be their base camp, and making sure that space was ready for them as well. So you can see I'm in and out different elements of providing safety, security, and making sure we're there ready for the community to thrive once we're out of this recession and even help people survive it. Because as government, I see us as a safety net. We're able there to protect that safety and help you bounce back and take those risks when you want to take them. So that's really a little bit about me. I look forward to the questions.
Okay, so I will go ahead and get started with that. And just to remind everybody, go ahead and put your questions in the chat, and I will be checking the chat and reading them off. But to get things started, my first question for you, Ed, is there is always the topic of recruiting new businesses to town. If you were that potential business and you drove into San Leandro for the first time ever, what would you see that would make you want to have your business here? What would be the drawbacks?
Well, a lot of when I come in San Leandro, I see the diversity and the opportunity and the location. You know, having the background real estate is about location, 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 but also making sure that location is cared for. The people in the community care about the community, are involved in many which ways. And I know a lot of people in San Leandro care, are involved. So the idea of location with the San Leandro Tech Campus, 2 BART stations close to the water, and also looking at what can we maybe improve on. There's still potholes, infrastructure to maintain. There's still work to be done there. So bringing more revenue to do that work is what's been my focus. You know, with the transfer tax on the ballot this year, I ideally bring about $4 million more through the sales to some commercial property that can help fill that need, because sales tax is down about 40%, and we got to find a way to fill that gap. And I don't want to cut services. I want to maintain them and expand them. So really, people, when they look at San Leandro, it's a great opportunity to invest and stay and play and recreate. You know, so we look at the marina, we're looking at that redevelopment opportunity. We're looking at Maximus, pushing for that as well. That downtown also, we have maybe another development there, the old CVS spot. But being able to be part of that planning future with the Village Marketplace, seeing that to realization as a planning commissioner, the technology campus, SOTC, and the art that's there, it's amazing. Some of the work I've been able to be a part of, you know, those groundbreakings, even down in Washington, seeing that large Halcyon Park business park that will attract more businesses who are looking to do maybe some warehouse distribution, or better yet, advanced manufacturing. So finding those opportunities and bringing them in to San Leandro, and then partnership with you, Emily, and the Chamber, really figure out what are the needs and how can we work together to make that win-win happen, not only for the Chamber, but also for the community, and then keep investing further to see a better outcome for all of us.
What would some of the drawbacks be if you were that new business looking at San Leandro?
Well, some people might not say, where's San Leandro? You know, sometimes they say, well, it's south of Oakland in the East Bay, and that gives people context. They're always wondering, what are things to do? What can we be doing in San Leandro? What's the fun in San Leandro? And some of the events we normally have, like the Cherry Festival, are shelved, right? So then people will look at restaurants and other opportunities for entertainment. Then we have to educate or inform that we've had 3 breweries in town. We have Drake's, 21st Amendment, and there's more opportunities to be involved. So part of my vision for San Leandro at the marina there, be more of a place. Now we're going to provide housing, hotels, but bring in that private ferry, look at that driving golf range. How can that become more of a top golf environment so people can have more entertainment options in San Leandro, and revitalizing Bayfair Mall, really open that up. Yes, because we know that Amazon's eaten most of malls' lunch. All retail has gone sideways a lot of times. And so finding ways to pivot, support, and inform, and find creative ways to inspire people to go back to places where, when you can, be together and have fun together. Ideally, people are normally shop online. They might experience something in person, and really having those experiences, curating those places. That's something I'm interested in doing more in San Leandro. And I sit on another group called the Urban Land Institute Placemaking Committee. Mm-hmm. And so that is focused on how we develop places where people come together equitably and responsibly.
Okay, great. And just reminding everybody once again, put your questions in the chat and we will get to them. With not much land to develop in San Leandro, what's your position on height limits of new structures?
Well, it really depends on the location. I mean, height limits might limit the opportunity to pencil out a development, but you also want to be respectful of the community in that space to understand what's the right balance You can't say, I'm going to put 100 units in this small block and not expect any pushback. So my part is to make sure we have those discussions, that dialogue, to move forward with the best project for the community that pencils out for the investor and brings forth that necessary housing or that retail or that commercial space needed in our community, so that way there are more jobs, more places that people stay, and affordably. Because a lot of challenges finding that right balance. And I don't want to make sure anything happens because, oh yeah, I'm in power, I'm gonna make that happen. It's more about what makes sense. So I have to make sure I hear both sides and try to come together with my council colleagues for when it does come to a vote, what's the right fit for this community. And sometimes they're tough votes. I mean, we just recently had one, and my apologies, I couldn't make it out there because I did have a family emergency and still going through that now. So that vote there was quite important to see some development occur, and I'm supportive of the council. Maybe we would have made some additional tweaks, but overall, we're seeing some development, and we're hoping that we can absorb and bring that into development for additional people in our community to call it San Leandro, and the tax revenue would also help improve the infrastructure and development in San Leandro. So I think it's a balancing thing, and really understand the ins and outs of it is what I really want to understand. And I think I've gotten that over the last few years, the last 9 years, and I'm hoping to do more for our community.
Okay, that leads me to my next question. So my next question is, as development happens in the city, whether it is residential or commercial, there are going to be some residents who are upset and concerned that the development will change the character of the city or of a neighborhood, as well as stressing the current infrastructure. What are your thoughts about the city growing with the idea that perhaps it does change?
Yeah, I mean, change is constant. I mean, we know that. That's, if you don't change, you die. And so ideally, we're always evolving and changing how we respond to dynamics, but we also want to be respectful of the community that's here. We don't want to create gentrification, pushing people out for other people, maybe because they have extra dollars in their pocket. That's not really fair. We have to find a way to include the existing community and having those conversations to have value in that space. Maybe it's a lower free, reduced childcare option, some other opportunities that might be a free hotspot Wi-Fi area for residents come through. So it depends on the development, what's the community benefit? And that's always important. There's places in the country that they don't really allow for community benefits, but here in California we do. So we've got to find what is the sort of win-win, not only for the existing community, but also for the new folks who might come, live here, work here, or play here. So we got to make sure we evolve and we make that change slowly, but sure, we do have to evolve and make that happen. So I'm excited to be part of this and continue that, do that work and have conversations with the stakeholders. And ideally we get some good places to live and have fun.
Okay, thank you for that. We have a question from one of our guests, so I will read it just as it was typed in. The last forum, a candidate mentioned San Leandro schools. How do you think our schools are performing? And what do you see as your role as a council member in regards to San Leandro schools?
It's always important to have a partnership and have an opportunity to have those dialogues to make our schools better. There's always room for improvement. Most recently, during this last few years, I mean, I know San Leandro High School has been able to get some great awards, highlighting their AP advancement, and more students are graduating from schools. I believe also there's technology deployed that allows children who might not have access to internet the ability to do so. And through partnership with Tech Exchange and providing some grants and technology, we're able to help and partner with the schools to do that. But it's an ongoing effort. We know we have to find a way to really systematically improve our schools throughout our community equally, not because this part of town has more income, then they get more resources. It's make sure that everybody has an opportunity, a level playing field to advance and find opportunity. Through city government, we are attracting new businesses that maybe pay into those school impact fees that allow us to invest more into the schools. Not everybody who might move into San Leandro have kids, therefore impacting the school. But if there are challenges and opportunities, having those dialogues are quite important. Ultimately, you know, the kids are the future. We want to make sure, at least I want to make sure that they have a place here, they have a fair place to actually reach their dreams. And then it takes work from us. But a lot of it is partnering, having these conversations, and supporting measures like I believe Prop 15 that really impacts some businesses more so, but ultimately creates a place for students to thrive, and those will be your future workers. Because when I was in I think back east, there was a conversation about Amazon coming to town, and the pitch there in Nashville, I believe was the kids were the ones like, I want to work for Amazon in the future, and these were kids who are 10 or 12. So you're looking at the future. How are you going to help these kids thrive to prepare your business to succeed for the next 20 years thereafter, the current workforce? So if the kids are not prepared for the future, then how's your business going to survive? So you have to look at it as an investment for the future, and really making sure you look at it that way, a long-term view, not a short-term view that maybe will hurt me in the next couple of years, but it's an investment in our community, and overall it's the right thing to do.
Okay. So our next question, I'm going to take it from our last forum. What role as a city council member do you play in addressing race and violence?
Well, it's quite important that if we have concerns in the community, like we've had this past year about race and violence, officer-involved shootings, it's important to hear it and act on it. And then also understand what can we do, what can't we do, and how do we push that forward for the things we can do. I mean, can we authorize independent investigations into the officer-involved shooting? Yes. Did we do that? Yes. You know, and then can we form maybe an oversight commission, or look at an equity and race commission also to help us identify best practices that are a good fit for San Leandro? Yes, and we've done that. Really evaluating what are the things we can do to be more equitable. Are we pushing for more depolicing? That means you're not stopping everybody for every minor infraction. Yes, and have we seen the chief do that and the police officer union also agree to that? Yes. So we're looking at these systemic changes to break down and change these policies that are biased. I mean, we recently talked about not letting people maybe be in the media because of safety purposes, but that also might impact people who are homeless, they're looking for some help on that day basis. Systemically, that might be more biased because who depends who's on that intersection, on that medium. But really providing those resources to make sure that people who are vulnerable, and when you're vulnerable, you're afraid and you might do anything. So it's quite important to help provide those resources, such as with the Homeless Task Force, that's award-winning, providing resources and finding ways to provide more resources with people without a gun to go out there and help the people in crisis or need, when people might not have a shared reality. So really listening and affecting the change we need to see to be more equitable, responsible, but also finding a way to do it at a lesser cost. Because over 60% of the budget goes to public safety, and that's not sustainable because then we have less resources for the community, like the parks, the libraries, fixing the roads, or investing in attracting new quality business to San Leandro. So it's a bit of it's a very difficult challenge. But fortunately, the last 4 years I've been learning and working on this, and I'm happy to do the work still.
Okay. And another question from one of our guests is, as an incumbent, are there any council votes you've made that in hindsight you now regret or have had unintended consequences that you hope to address in the future?
That's a good question. I've been pretty happy with my votes, you know, in regards to tenant protections. I voted and supported that. I think something that wasn't, in my opinion, ready for prime time was the mobile rent ordinance protection. There was going to be maybe quite a few issues, and we've seen those, but I could have just supported it and made it have those entities work themselves out. But ultimately, we have to make sure the people who want to stay in San Leandro can do so if they choose to do so, and find a way to provide that opportunity, either through our support or through other programs that are able to help folks who maybe want to stay and live here. So finding ways to provide housing, providing the safety security, so when people want to work and live in San Leandro, they have that option. Because really don't want people commuting hundreds of miles to clean tables at a Sizzler or other things. But there's essential work and people travel. So it's going to be quite important, so that way people don't have to do that. We don't affect the planet with greenhouse gases, and make sure people have a better quality of life, which I think that's most important of all. So we're not driving towards reverting back pre-COVID to mega commutes and driving every which way. We've used technology successfully to meet here today. I think we can do more of that, so that way people can work near home and not having to drive so far. So there's still a lot of opportunity here in San Leandro because of our location. And maybe we'll see the San Leandro Tech Campus develop. You know, we have a second building, there's a third building that needs to be built, and there's also housing. So people might see more options to work near home, and you might have satellite campuses, and that's where San Leandro is very poised to do so, have an opportunity to really take on that chance. And, you know, being able to bridge that water with private ferry, using that instead of getting stuck on the bridge with a company like Genentech, is very much looking at San Leandro to use that transportation source and then eventually become more of a public option. So I'm really bullish in San Leandro, and I'm really excited to be in this position to be able to affect the change. I think that community.
Okay, I think we, you did. We muted you on that one.
Okay. Well, thank you. I just need a sign. Give me a
Yes,
green light or something.
I want to get to the second part of the question. I know you
Sure.
said that you feel pretty good about most of the votes that you've made.
Yeah.
Do you feel like any of them have had unintended consequences that you hope to address in the future?
I mean, I want to, and I'm sorry if I'm blanking out, but I feel pretty confident on my votes. I mean, other people might disagree. I think overall, I've been fortunate to have a great council to work with me. We've had various dialogues to talk about why we vote certain ways and overall thinking through unintended consequences. Because I worry about if we vote on something like the mobile home rent ordinance, will there be long, lengthy lawsuits, right? So those are the ideas that I want to avoid those kind of costs so that way we can get towards the goal, and the goal is to help people stay in their homes. Ultimately, if we would look at the Manor Bowl, that recent development, could I have held it back on that? And I'm curious what would have done 30, 45 days, but maybe we could squeeze additional fees out of that. Maybe the developer could have one or two more conversations. But ultimately, I think we would have already had seen and heard that they had 2 years in discussion, so that's why I voted for it, because I was worried that this might get stalled longer and it just ends up being a vacant old bowling site that no one uses. And that was my biggest concern. So we have to think about locally, what can we protect the community, but also think more at the broader level for the community. So this is a difficult job, and it takes a lot of work and listening most of the time.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do a quick time check. We're at 3:53, so we have a few more minutes with you. My next question to you is, I've got one from one of our candidates. After the election, what will be your principal goal for 2021?
Well, I think just really respecting the opportunity to continue the COVID recovery and the recession's impact on the community, specifically again, housing, food insecurity, and working towards providing more support. But really the focus will be after that was really looking at Bayfair's redevelopment. Maybe we talked about that being from a mall to a village, and it's gonna be quite important for me to bring the housing, evaluate what kind of places we should develop there for our community, because you can have over 2,000 homes there. And what does that mean? I mean, especially right now, people maybe just go to Target and a couple other stores around there, but really no one goes inside the mall unless you have some special needs there that you're going for. But ultimately, the mall is dead, and we got to find a way better to transition that space in partnership with Madison Marquette. And that's one of the reasons why I brought the general manager into that task force, so he can hear our budget concerns and really be part of the solution and understand the value of working with us to evolve that space to a better space that benefits not only them, but our community as well. Because in DC, they have a great waterfront project. They have great spaces. They have impromptu sort of performances and music. And why can't they do that here in San Leandro? I think there's a huge opportunity, and that's gonna be my focus post-COVID, and making sure people can stay in their homes, bounce back from their jobs. They'll probably be muted in 10 seconds, but really looking forward to the opportunity.
Okay. So our we might be able to get a couple more questions. Let's see.
Let's go. Fast.
If you could direct 1.7 million in the city's budget, what would your priorities be? Where do you think money can make the most difference?
Of course. I think a majority of the money needs to go towards COVID recovery, making sure people can stay safe in their homes, investing in small businesses, supporting vulnerable communities by making sure we have the opportunity to provide those resources when people are homeless, need a place, need a resource, or they're dealing through some mental health concerns. So I think it's quite important to do that. And what way we do it, that's what's going to be important to maybe look at a potential police oversight committee and spending the money, about 50 grand or so, to look at what's our solution there. Of course, we have to look at what other human services can we do. Can we expand library hours, provide more resources, give more Wi-Fi hotspots, really looking at maintaining and sort of figure out what are the things that the community wants and needs. And a lot of it is support through this recession and through this pandemic. I think that's our core focus, and where we can invest further for long-term benefits, so everybody feels safer and better together, that would be my core value, core focus.
So we are at 3:56, and I've got one last question for you. What is your proudest public service accomplishment?
Well, I think really focusing down on the budget and bringing forth $52 million reserve, so we're ready for this recession today, which is about $12 to $13 million we're drawing down now. And so if we didn't have that money, we would be cutting jobs, cutting services, cutting opportunities for infrastructure improvement. We'd be cutting. We haven't done that. And because we have a strong financial footing, can we continue to provide support in the community to make a difference in people's lives when they're hurting? I mean, like we mentioned, over $1 million in resources to the community during this pandemic, testing locally. Those are the things that matter, that we have the resources so we can deploy the programs that helps people stay safe and healthy and get through this pandemic. And of course, bringing over 2,000 homes in the pipeline and bringing that housing security, bringing more jobs to San Leandro, thousands there, maybe looking at Halcyon project development that brought forward some new jobs and even possibly bringing in another Amazon footprint there. But really, I think the focus, tons of pavement for the roads, looking to do more complete streets, and making sure the business in San Leandro can survive and thrive. Unfortunately, I've been endorsed by the majority of the council, 3 Alameda County supervisors, Sierra Club, the building trades, and there's more work to be done. And I'm happy to be able to do that for the next 4 years, and I'm excited to do it. And I know the mission of the chamber is the glue to dialogue among all branches, national, regional, local government, and it's important that we work together to make sure we provide that service to our community.
Great. So we've got about 3 minutes left. I'm going to ask you another question, and then I'll give you like a minute for your closing remarks.
Sure.
So we all know the importance of the businesses in our city and the jobs that they create, the sales tax and all the many other fees that they generate. They generate the spirit and the energy of our city to entice visitors and shoppers. And so with so many businesses affected by the pandemic, what can we all learn to be of better assistance to the business community? And how can these lessons be put into motion now rather than later?
Yeah, I mean, as a consultant for small businesses in the past or large organizations, it's important to understand where they're at. Do you have enough reserves to survive 3 to 6 months not having any revenue? And figure out what is your plan or opportunities to pivot. And if they don't have those plans to pivot, then how can we help you make a transition? I mean, fortunately, one of my fundraisers, I worked with Pink's Catering, which they were just focused on catering events. And one of our conversations we talked about home delivery. So that's how you survive. You change or you die. And I think Pigs and Craig and Pinky were able to adjust. And I want to be supportive of that. So one of my campaign fundraisers, they delivered 70 meals to my supporters. And I helped, partner with them. They partnered with me to make sure I'm helping them, and they're helping me have an experience where people can be supportive of a small business in San Leandro, and also be supportive of my campaign, and really making sure that I understand how small businesses work, because not only have I worked with them, but I've also worked with Miriam's Flower Shop, and a former council member, Lee Thomas, is really cute to partner. And my focus has been local. And how can you support local government and local business at the same time? And you have to collaborate and find ways that what are the resources the government brings, and what can you work with small businesses or even large businesses and bring them together to be a win for the community with tax revenue, with opportunities to improve our infrastructure and provide the safety and security that people ask for, and really provide those services that people can thrive with now and post-recovery. But it's awesome. I'm afforded an opportunity that I never thought about getting, being the first child from a large family of cousins who are out there to graduate from college. And I didn't know what I would do with my life at one point, but I was happy to find a calling and a mission, a passion. And I'm glad to be of service here in City San Leandro. And then regardless of the role or not, I'll still be involved. I'm happy to be here. And as a former chamber board director, I did that for about a year and say, oh, then you got to resign if you're running for city council. Like, okay, I enjoy the opportunity to work in our community, and I'll keep doing it. And this is just how I am in service today. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ed. If there's any last closing words that you might want to say, because we are right at 4 o'clock, and we always like to start on time and end on time. So
sure.
Any
no,
last
of course.
few words?
Yeah. I just want to say this has been a crazy year, a very challenging year, difficult year because we've layered the pandemic, the recession, and various issues of social unrest. And so through this experience, through this time, you need experienced leadership, and right now's the time. And I think I'm still the right guy to help us carry us through. As they say, Winston Churchill, if you're going through hell, keep going. And I hope that you can stick with me, because I'll get you out of it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ed. And thank you for being here today and taking the time with us. So we appreciate it. Thanks
Yeah.
a lot.
Ed Hernandez for citycouncil.com. I'll see you there.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye. Thanks for being here.
Bye, Jay.
Bye. So everyone, in just a few minutes, we are going to have Bryan Azevedo join us. Okay. And there he is. I see him on the screen now. So I just want to go ahead and repeat a little bit of what I said at the opening with Ed for anybody that just signed on. So I'm Emily Grego. I'm President and CEO here at the San Leandro Chamber of Commerce. This is our Government Affairs Roundtable, Meet the Candidates. Last week, we met the candidates from District 4, Chris Bammer and Fred Simon. And now this week, we're meeting Ed Hernandez and Bryan Azevedo. We've had half an hour with Ed, and now we will have this last hour with Bryan. I also want to remind everybody that the Chamber does have a political action committee, and if you're not able to cast a vote in San Leandro, you might want to consider being a member of the PAC, and I'm more than happy to give you information about that. So to get started, hi, Bryan.
Hello, how's everyone doing? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I'm going to get started with having you take about 2 or 3 minutes and let everybody know what led you to running for City Council.
Okay. Yes, I'm a 4th generation here in San Leandro, and I've seen San Leandro go through some changes. Some good, some not so good. I'm running because anyone could be on the City Council for a vote, but we need a champion for our principles and values. Somebody that's fighting for this community every single day, and I'm dedicated to it. As your council member, I'll make sure San Leandro is an affordable place to live, work, start a business, and raise a family. As your council member, I promise to be proactive and accessible. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. So we've got a few questions that we from our guests that were pointed towards Ed that I think will also work for asking you as well. But if anybody out there has any new questions, please put them in the chat. Okay. So our first question from one of our guests is, during the last forum, a candidate mentioned San Leandro schools. How do you think our schools are performing? What do you see as your role as a council member in regards to San Leandro schools?
Well, I think our schools, in some ways, they're on a good track because my kids go to the school, and my kids didn't have Wi-Fi, and they needed Wi-Fi to get on the internet, and digital divide's a big issue here in San Leandro. So I think they're performing good in some ways, but in some ways, I think we need to let the students know that not all students are going to go to college. Some students are going to go straight to work. So they need to know about these apprenticeship programs, that some students are going to go. We have these apprenticeship programs right here in San Leandro where they can go for a 5-year program and make $100,000 a year. My role as a city council member is to work with the school. Right now they meet 1 time a year. I think we should meet more than 1 time a year with the school district so we can get a comprehensive plan and then meet again and then at least get some feedback. So I think that'll be a good role.
Okay. Our next question is, there is always the topic of recruiting new businesses to San Leandro. If you were that potential business and you drove into San Leandro for the first time ever, what would you see that would make you want to have your business here? And what would be the drawbacks?
Well, one thing that would draw me here is the location, because we're in a good location right here. We're always in between San Francisco and San Jose. We're always right in the middle. We can get anywhere from San Leandro. I mean, we can get to anywhere from San Leandro, whether BART, driving, or public transportation. Some of the drawbacks would be right now where all the businesses are boarded up and it's COVID, and right now businesses aren't expanding. And right now with COVID going on, a lot of businesses are working from home. And I've been talking to friends that work at Google and different Apple and different corporations and businesses, and they're having a lot of their workers work from home. So right now businesses aren't expanding like that. It's cheaper to work from home. So I don't think there's going to be a lot more businesses expanding with actual buildings. I think it's going to be more like over the Zoom meetings and working from home right now. So I think right now we have a lot of challenges. Like in the short term, I think we can help businesses get grants and loans. In the long term, We need to make sure the community development program is funded and we're able to keep it going for the businesses.
Okay. So with there not being much land to develop in San Leandro, what's your position on height limits of new structures?
Well, I haven't looked too much into it, but what I've seen is we have a lot of 2-story buildings and we have a couple 3 stories. I would have to look more into it. I'm not sure exactly on the height limit on all the different buildings. It depends on what area it's in for the height limit.
Okay. Next question is, as development happens in our city, whether it's residential or commercial, there are some residents who are upset and concerned that the development will change the character of the city or of a neighborhood, as well as stressing the current infrastructure. What are your thoughts about the city growing with the idea that perhaps it does change?
I think the city should grow and it needs to grow. We just need to have the right development for the right areas. I think that different projects, if they have the right amount of units for the areas, I think it would be good for the areas because we need housing in San Leandro. Housing is an important issue. So we need to make sure that it's affordable housing too, not market rate that's $4,000 a month where not everybody can afford it either.
Okay. So there's another question in our chat from one of our guests, and I think there's some more. Let me scroll down here. Okay, here we go. What is your 100-day plan? In other words, what specifically do you plan to work on during your first 100 days in office?
Well, my number one priority is making sure folks are able to stay in their homes, whether they rent or they pay mortgage. So I'm going to work on ways in keeping them in their homes. Finding out about the homelessness. We have 4 or 5 different kinds of homeless here in San Leandro. I believe that everybody should be home. So we need to find out what kind of homeless they are, because there's some homeless that are just down on their luck that would love to have a place. There's ones with mental issues or drug issues, and we need to find out which kind of homeless they are. And that's important to me. We need to find homes for folks here in San Leandro.
Okay. Another one of our questions from one of our guests is, if you could direct 1.7 million in the city's budget, what would your priorities be? Where do you think the money can make the most difference?
I would have to look into that with the city staff, you know, because the budget is a reflection of my values, as I've said before in other forums. We have a lot of underserved and underprivileged here in San Leandro, so I would have to look at the budget and see where we could use it and to help them. And we have a lot of workers, and the city staff is really under budgeted over here in San Leandro. We have some people working 5 different positions here in San Leandro, so I would have to look into all of it.
Okay. Another question we have that just came in from one of our guests is, small business is suffering in San Leandro. What are you going to do different for the businesses who cannot work from home?
Well, what I would do is, well, there's a lot of different ways you can go at this. One way is I would talk to the commercial property owners. I know we probably have some of them on the Chamber of Commerce, and work with them to maybe make it a little easier for these business owners, because business owners are struggling right now too. And we got to make sure that consumers are buying the products for the businesses, but businesses are going to have to be able to be open to be able to sell it. So we need council members that can help advertise it and help push it, make sure that people know these businesses are open, and let them know, and have policies that'll help them keep their doors open.
Okay. So another one of my questions for you is, what role as a city council member would you play in addressing race and violence?
What I would do is I would meet with all different groups in the community, different races and religions, and get a task force group together, an equity task force, and find out what's the best way how we can deal with it, because there's a lot of racism going on in San Leandro. We've been dealing with it for years. And once we think it's gone, it reappears. We had an issue in Heron Bay a few years back. We had a noose. We have a swastika that was painted. So we need a specific group just that deals with this, just addresses it. And that's what I would do.
Okay. My next question, it looks like we might have a new question. What do you view the role is of a city council member?
I believe the role of a city council is to help pass and implement policy for the city and help look out for the community, be a representative of the community, do what the community wants, not what developers or investors or landlord associations. We need to do what the community wants. That's what I believe the role of a city council member is.
Okay. Another question that's come in. How many small business owners have you met with in the last 30 days to find out what issues they are having?
I've met with, I couldn't tell you how many, but I'm already endorsed and supported by over 30 businesses, and I talk to them frequently, and I talk to a lot of businesses in San Leandro. And that's one of the first things I'm going to do when if I'm elected to the city councils. I'm going to start meeting with all the businesses in San Leandro. I know we have over 4,000 or 5,000 here in San Leandro, and we need to let them know that somebody's looking out for them too. You know, someone that's running that has a good balance on the city council.
Okay. My next question for you, I think I'm just going to double check the chat that I got all of the questions in there asked. Okay. So my next question to you is, with the importance of businesses in our city and the jobs that they create and the sales tax and other fees that they generate, as well as the spirit and the energy of the city to entice visitors and shoppers, with so many businesses affected by the pandemic, what can we learn to be of better assistance to the business community? And how can these lessons be put into motion now rather than later?
Well, what I believe we could do is we could work with these small businesses and make sure they have the safety and the PPE and everything they need to open up right now and be able to follow it until this pandemic's over with, because we need to get these businesses open. We have a lot of businesses in San Leandro that are struggling right now, and we need to be able to open them up where it's safe, where people aren't going to get sick. So the guidelines we follow now, we need to follow until it's gone and until there's a vaccine or a cure or something, because they say it's going to come back. Once we think it's gone, we have a good chance of it coming back.
Okay. All right. So we are a little bit ahead of schedule. You are very succinct and in your answers,
Yeah, I know.
Bryan.
I answered my questions kind of fast.
So we're a little bit ahead of time. So I'm going to ask you a couple of more that I have. I don't see any more questions in the chat, so I'll ask you just a few more that I've got from the chamber.
Okay.
What is your proudest public service accomplishment?
Well, I've helped do a lot of things. I can't take credit for anything myself. It's always about we, not about I. But when I was on the Rec and Parks Commission, I advocated with other commissioners putting Wi-Fi in the parks. And I worked with Benny Lee and other council member, and we got it passed. And I'm happy that it's at 7 parks now and it's expanding. I'm proud of that. And we served 3,000 meals out of my driveway with the help of the community and small businesses. We worked with several small businesses here in San Leandro, them donating food and we providing it to the community.
Okay. And this question was asked at our last forum, so I will just go ahead and ask you as well. With the downturn in the economy and sales tax revenue down because of the pandemic, what ideas do you have to increase revenue and city services.
You broke up in part of that. Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. Sorry about that. With the downturn in the economy and sales tax revenue down, what ideas do you have to increase revenue and preserve city services?
Well, one is to help advertise these businesses here in San Leandro, help promote them. I already do it, and I think we need different systems here where we can help our businesses here in San Leandro succeed. I really think that we need to work with the commercial property owners here in San Leandro to help these business owners. I think that that's a big thing. And I've been talking to other people about different policies that I've been thinking about, a vacancy property tax to help San Leandro work. There's a lot of different issues and policies I'm thinking about here in San Leandro.
So can you expand on that a little bit more? So vacant property tax, but what name one more?
Name one more. Well, there's a lot of different things. Like I'm pushing for the greenway on the greenway on the railroad. Okay, well, I'll keep it straight to business. Well, different policies where they're able to keep their doors open, where that vacancy property taxes, that we have a lot of vacant buildings here in San Leandro, and that can go towards helping businesses or towards helping the homeless get housed here in San Leandro.
Okay. So one question that just came in, it says, the Washington manor is ignored when it comes to support. We see no street cleaning or anything, etc.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. I've walked the streets of the manor a lot, going door to door and talking to folks, and the manor is totally ignored. Those streets are terrible. And they're tired of paying for the same potholes over and over. They get their potholes patched, and then as soon as a storm or some cars go over, it's back. So we need to have a system in place where we have one crew just fixing major potholes and another crew repaving the roads in a good system. Because yeah, the manor is totally ignored. I agree.
Okay. That exhausts my list of questions. I think we've gotten all of the questions in the chat. If anybody has any last questions, please go ahead and put it in there. So Bryan, I'm going to give you just a few minutes for your closing remarks. Let everybody know why they should support you.
Okay, yeah. One thing, if you support me is, you'll have a fighter, someone that'll fight for what he believes in. These are my three principles. Number one, I believe in fairness. Number two, I believe in a balanced approach, looking out for working people, folks living paycheck to paycheck, seniors on fixed incomes, to the small business owner. San Leandro is like an ecosystem. We need to have good balance. Number three is I'm a listener. I listen to everyone, even though I might not agree. My mom and dad taught me you can be anything you want in this world. You just got to be willing to fight for it. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm passionate about this community, and I'm passionate about our small businesses here. And I humbly ask you guys for your guys' support. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
So Bryan, we have a couple minutes and I got one last question. So I'm going to ask you this last question, okay?
Okay.
Make sure all of our guests are heard and they get in their thoughts. What is your feeling on defunding the police?
My funding on defunding the police is we need to reallocate some of the funds. I have a lot of friends that work for the San Leandro Police Department, and they agree with me. Some of them are overburdened. And so I think we should reallocate some of the funds for mental health issues. We should have a mental health component that takes care of just people with mental health. Like I was talking about the different kinds of homeless people here in San Leandro, taking care just of them because they need to be housed. So I believe that some of the funds could be reallocated towards that, and it'll take some of the burden off the police, where they can just focus on crimes and criminals. I went and spoke to the PLA, and I told them that I wasn't going to accept their endorsement or their support because I didn't think it was right what they did with Stephen Taylor. I told them to their face that I believe that they could have tackled him rather than killing him. So that's how I feel about it.
All right. So like we are ahead of time, you did let us know why we should vote for you with your three principle statement of fairness, balanced approach, and you're a good listener. So thank you so much, Bryan.
Thanks. You. All right. You have
good
a good
luck
one.
to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right. Bye-bye.
And everybody else that's here with us, thank you for being here. Some of you joined us the last time. Thank you for coming back with us this week. And please just, cast your vote where you see your values represented. And our San Leandro PAC will be making an endorsement. So we will share that with all of you once that is done.